The mining colony of Haven 7 sat at the very edge of known space. It was a small place with gray buildings and dusty streets. The air always smelled like metal and engine smoke. About 3,000 humans lived there, working the mines and running the machines that pulled precious minerals from the rocky ground. The colony existed because the Velthari Empire allowed it to exist. The Velthari were tall beings with pale blue skin and 6 eyes arranged in 2 rows across their faces. They ruled over 200 star systems and countless species. To them, humans were useful but unimportant. They let humans build their little colonies on planets the Empire did not want. They watched humans work and took their share of the profits. That was the deal. Among all the people on Haven 7, there lived a small girl named Una Park. She was 8 years old, with short black hair and curious dark eyes. She was thin and quiet, the kind of child who watched more than she spoke. Her father, Darwin Park, worked as a terraforming engineer. He spent long days fixing the machines that made the air breathable and the water clean. Una had no mother. She had died when Una was only 2 years old, taken by a sickness that the colony doctors could not cure. Dohan rarely spoke about her, but Una sometimes found him looking at old photographs late at night. She would pretend not to notice. What Una did have was Bori. Bori was a honey badger. He was about the size of a small dog, with thick gray and black fur and a white stripe running from his head down his back. His claws were long and curved, made for digging through hard earth. His eyes were small and black, like 2 drops of ink. 3 years ago, Dohan had found Bori in a crashed transport ship at the edge of the colony. Smugglers had been moving illegal animals from Earth to sell to wealthy aliens who collected exotic creatures. The ship had failed during landing. The smugglers died. Most of the animals died too, but in one broken cage, a young honey badger had survived. Dohan had brought the creature home. He told Una it was a temporary thing. He said they would find somewhere proper to send it. But days became weeks, and weeks became months, and Bori never left. The honey badger had chosen Una from the start. On his first night in their small home, he had walked past Dohan, climbed onto Una's bed, and curled up beside her feet. He had stayed there ever since Bori was a strange animal. He never made sounds. Other creatures barked or growled or hissed when they were angry or scared. Bori did none of these things. He moved through the world in complete silence. He watched everything with his small black eyes and showed nothing of what he felt. Some of the colonists were afraid of him. They had heard stories about honey badgers from Earth. They knew these creatures feared nothing. They attacked lions. They ate venomous snakes. They fought until they won or died, and they almost never died. But Una saw none of that. To her, Bori was simply her friend. He followed her to school each morning and waited outside until she finished. He sat beside her when she ate her meals. He slept at the foot of her bed every night. When she was sad, he would press his warm body against her leg and stay there until she felt better. The Velthari who watched over Haven 7 found the animal amusing. Commander Ran was their leader, a tall and serious figure who rarely smiled. He had served the Empire for 40 years and considered himself above such small things as human children and their pets. But even he sometimes stopped to look at the strange creature. What is its purpose? He asked Dohan one day. Dohan thought about the question. It has no purpose, he said. It is simply her companion. Commander Ran did not understand this. In the Velthari Empire, every creature served a function. Animals worked, or they were food, or they were eliminated. The idea of keeping an animal simply for companionship seemed wasteful. His lieutenant, Vess, studied Bori with greater interest. She was younger than Ran and more curious about the humans they governed. She watched how the honey badger moved, how it watched, how it positioned itself always between Yuna and any potential threat. It guards her, Vess observed. It is small, Ran replied. What could it possibly guard against? Vess did not have an answer. She only knew that something about the silent creature made her uneasy. When she looked into its black eyes, she saw nothing. No fear, no aggression, no submission. Just a flat, patient emptiness that waited and watched. Life continued on Haven 7. Yuna went to school and played with the other children. Dohan worked his long shifts and came home tired, but always with a smile for his daughter. Bori followed Yuna like a shadow, silent and watchful. Nobody knew what was coming. Nobody could have predicted that the quiet life of one small girl and her strange pet would soon shake the foundations of the greatest empire in the galaxy. The first sign came on a cold morning when Dawn received a message from the Colonial Administration. The Velthari High Council had announced an inspection tour of all border colonies. A member of the Imperial Royal Family would be visiting Haven 7. Dawn read the name of the visitor and felt his blood turn cold. Prince Torak was coming, and nothing would ever be the same again. The news of Prince Torak's visit spread through Haven 7 like fire through dry grass. Within hours, everyone knew. Within days, the entire colony was preparing. Workers cleaned streets that had never been cleaned before. Engineers polished machines until they shined. The Colonial Administration ordered new flags and banners in the purple and gold colors of the Velthari Empire. Everyone worked hard to make their small colony look its best. But beneath all this activity, there was fear. Prince Torak was the third son of Emperor Varn, ruler of the Velthari Empire. He would never sit on the throne. His older brothers had that path. So Torak had found other ways to amuse himself. He collected things, rare minerals, ancient artifacts, and creatures. The stories about his collection were terrible. He gathered exotic animals from every conquered world. But he did not simply keep them. He studied them. He tested them. He wanted to see what they could endure. Many creatures entered his private menagerie. Few survived for long. Worse still were the rumors about children. Twice before, young ones from other species had caught Torak's interest during his visits. They had been taken to the Imperial Palace to serve the prince. Their families never saw them again. Dohan knew all of this. He had heard the stories from traders who passed through Haven 7. He had seen the reports that circulated among the colonists, passed from hand to hand in whispers the night after the announcement. He sat in his small kitchen and watched Yuna play with Bori. The honey badger lay on his back while Yuna rubbed his belly. It was the only time the creature ever seemed relaxed. His daughter. His only child. The one good thing he had left in the universe. He could not let Torak see her. The next morning, Dahan went to Commander Rand's office. He had never asked the Velthari for anything before. He had always kept his head down and done his work. But now he had no choice. "Commander," he said, his voice steady despite his fear, "I request that my daughter be excluded from the presentation ceremony." Rand looked up from his desk. His 6 eyes studied Dohan with cold interest. "Why would you make such a request?" "She is young," Dohan said. "She is shy. She would not make a good impression on the prince." Rand was silent for a long moment. He understood what Dohan was really asking. He was not stupid. He knew about Torak's reputation. "The prince has specifically requested to see all human children of the colony," Rand said finally. "He has heard about your daughter and her unusual pet. He wishes to see them both." Dohan felt his heart stop. "Commander, please. She is just a child. She is a subject of the Empire," Rand replied. "As are you. The prince's orders are absolute. Your daughter will attend the ceremony." The animal will attend as well. This is not a discussion. Dohan wanted to argue. He wanted to beg. He wanted to grab his daughter and run to the farthest edge of the galaxy where no Valkyrie could ever find them. But he could do none of these things. There was nowhere to run. The Empire was everywhere. And resistance meant death, not just for him, but for Yuna as well. He returned home and said nothing to his daughter. He held her close that night and did not sleep. The day of the visit arrived under gray skies. The colonists gathered in the central plaza, arranged in neat rows according to their work assignments. The children stood at the front, as ordered, wearing their cleanest clothes and their best smiles. Yuna stood among them. She wore a simple blue dress that her father had bought for her birthday. Her hair was brushed smooth. Bori sat at her feet, still and silent as always. She did not understand why her father seemed so worried. She did not know who Prince Torak was or why everyone seemed afraid. She only knew that something important was happening and that she needed to be on her best behavior. The sound came first. A deep rumble that shook the ground and rattled windows. Then the ship appeared, descending from the clouds like a great metal bird. It was larger than any vessel Yuna had ever seen, covered in gold decorations and purple lights. The ship landed at the edge of the plaza. Dust swirled in great clouds. The colonists shielded their eyes and waited. A ramp extended from the ship. 12 figures marched down first, moving in perfect formation. They were Valkyrie soldiers, but unlike any Yuna had seen before. Their armor was black and gold, covered in sharp edges and strange symbols. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. These were the Royal Guard, the elite warriors of the Empire. Each one had killed hundreds in service to the throne. Each one was worth a small army. Behind them came Prince Torak. He was tall, even for a Valkyrie. His skin was darker blue than most, almost purple. His 6 eyes were yellow instead of the usual silver. He wore robes of white silk trimmed with gold thread, and a crown of black metal sat upon his head. He moved slowly, looking over the assembled humans with obvious disgust. His eyes passed over the adults without interest. They stopped on the children. A small smile crossed his face. He walked along the line of young ones, pausing here and there to examine them more closely. The children trembled as he passed. Some cried silently. Parents stood frozen, unable to protect their own. Then Torak reached Yuna. He stopped. His yellow eyes moved from the girl to the creature at her feet. For a long moment, he simply stared. "This is the animal," he said. It was not a question. Commander Rand stepped forward. "Yes, Your Highness." A honey badger from Earth. Torak bent down slightly to look at Bori more closely. The honey badger did not move, did not react. He simply looked back at the prince with his empty black eyes. "Interesting," Torak said. He straightened and looked at Yuna. "And this is the child who keeps it?" Yuna did not know what to say. She nodded once, too scared to speak. The prince smiled again. It was not a kind smile. "Bring me the creature," he commanded. 2 of his guards moved forward immediately. They reached toward Bori with armored hands. And Bori moved, not backward, not away. The honey badger stepped forward, placing himself directly between Yuna and the approaching guards. He lowered his head. His body went completely still. No sound. No warning. Just absolute, perfect stillness. The guards hesitated. Something in that stillness made them pause. They should have listened to their instincts. Asterisk. What happened next lasted exactly 12 seconds. The Valkyrie Empire would study those 12 seconds for the next 100 years. They would slow down the recordings. They would analyze every movement. They would try to understand. They never would. The first guard reached down to grab Bori. His armored hand moved with the confidence of someone who had never faced a true threat. He expected the small creature to run or bite or do something predictable. Bori did none of those things. The honey badger moved. Not fast by the standards of Earth predators. A cheetah was faster. A striking snake was faster. But Bori moved with something more dangerous than speed. He moved with complete certainty. There was no hesitation. No wasted motion. Every action had exactly one purpose. His claws found the gap between the guard's gauntlet and arm guard. They were claws meant to tear through concrete and the hard shells of African tortoises. The ceremonial armor of the Velthari Royal Guard might as well have been paper. The guard screamed as his hand came apart. Blood sprayed across the stone plaza. He fell backward, clutching the ruin of his arm. The second guard was already reaching for his weapon. He never touched it. Bori was on him in a heartbeat, climbing his body like a ladder, claws finding purchase in the joints of his armor. The honey badger's teeth found the guard's throat, in the small space between helmet and chest plate. There was a sound like tearing cloth. The guard collapsed. 3 seconds had passed. 2 guards were down. The remaining 10 guards finally understood that something was wrong. They began to move, reaching for weapons, trying to form a protective circle around their prince. They were elite soldiers, trained from birth to fight and kill. They had faced alien armies and rebel forces and monsters from the dark edges of space. None of that mattered. Bori dropped from the second guard and charged the line. He was small and low to the ground, a gray blur moving between legs and under weapons. A guard fired his plasma rifle. The shot went wide, scorching the stone where Bori had been a moment before. Another guard swung his blade downward. It struck nothing but air. Bori was already behind him. Claws raked across the back of the guard's knees, severing tendons and bringing him crashing down. Before he hit the ground, Bori had moved to the next target. 6 seconds. 4 guards down. Prince Torak began to scream. He stumbled backward toward his ship, his fine robes catching on his feet. His yellow eyes were wide with something he had never felt before in his privileged life. Fear. The guards tried to protect him. They formed a wall of armored bodies between their prince and the creature. 3 of them fired at once, their plasma bolts crossing in the air. 1 bolt struck Bori in the shoulder. The flesh burned. The smell of cooked meat filled the air. Any normal animal would have fallen. Any normal animal would have screamed in pain and fled. Bori did not slow down. He did not acknowledge the wound. He simply continued. This was what the Velthari would never understand. Pain meant nothing to a honey badger. Injury meant nothing. The creature's brain was not built like theirs. It did not calculate odds or consider retreat. It had one mode when threatened. Attack until the threat no longer existed. Fight until you win or die. And honey badgers almost never died. 9 seconds. 7 guards down. The remaining 5 guards broke formation. Discipline crumbled. They were no longer elite soldiers. They were prey animals facing something their evolution had never prepared them for. They ran in different directions, trying to escape. Bor. I chose the ones closest to Yuna. He ignored the others. 2 more guards fell. Then 2 more. Their screams echoed across the plaza. Blood pooled on the stone. The colonists stood frozen in horror, unable to move, unable to look away. 11 seconds. 11 guards down. The last guard stood directly in front of Prince Torak, weapon raised, hands shaking. He was young, barely old enough to serve. His eyes met Bori's empty black gaze. He dropped his weapon and ran. Bori let him go. 12 seconds. 11 of the 12 elite royal guards lay dead or dying on the plaza of Haven-7. Prince Torak stood alone, pressed against the ramp of his ship. His robes were splattered with the blood of his protectors. His crown had fallen somewhere. He was crying, his yellow eyes leaking fluid down his dark blue cheeks. Bori stood in the center of the carnage. His gray fur was matted with blood, most of it not his own. The wound on his shoulder still smoked, the flesh blackened and raw. He was breathing heavily, but his eyes were calm, empty, patient. He looked at Prince Torak for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back to YUNA. The little girl had not moved. She stood exactly where she had been standing, her hands clasped in front of her, her eyes wide. She did not understand what had just happened. She only knew that people were hurt and that Bori was coming back to her. The honey badger sat at her feet. He pressed his wounded body against her leg. He looked up at her with those black eyes and waited. Yuna knelt down. Her small hands touched his blood-soaked fur. She should have been terrified. She should have screamed or run or cried. Instead, she wrapped her arms around him and held him close. "It's okay, Bori," she whispered. "It's okay. I'm here." The honey badger closed his eyes and leaned into her embrace. Across the plaza, Prince Torak scrambled up the ramp of his ship. He was screaming orders, demanding immediate departure, threatening everyone with execution. The ship's engines roared to life. Within minutes, the vessel was gone, climbing into the gray sky and vanishing among the clouds. Silence fell over Haven 7. The colonists stared at the dead guards. They stared at the little girl holding her wounded pet. They did not know what to do or say. Duhan was the first to move. He ran to his daughter and fell to his knees beside her. He pulled her and Bori into his arms and held them both. "It's over," he said, his voice breaking. "It's over." But he was wrong. It was not over. It was just beginning. The news spread across the Velthari Empire like a shockwave. Every colony, every station, every ship received the reports within days. A creature from Earth, no larger than a small child, had killed 11 elite royal guards in 12 seconds. At first, no one believed it. The Royal Guard were legends. They trained for decades before earning their armor. They had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. The idea that a single animal could destroy nearly an entire squad seemed impossible. Then the recordings arrived. Every Velthari outpost had cameras. The massacre at Haven 7 had been captured from multiple angles in perfect detail. Military commanders watched the footage in silence. Scientists studied it frame by frame. Politicians debated its meaning in endless meetings. Prince Torak was not among them. He had locked himself in his chambers at the Imperial Palace and refused to see anyone. The healers said he had not stopped shaking since his return. The mighty prince who collected dangerous creatures was now afraid to leave his room. His father, Emperor Vaughn, was not pleased. But even he understood that something significant had happened. He summoned the High Council to discuss the matter. The council chamber was the most important room in the empire. It sat at the heart of the Imperial Palace, a vast circular space with walls of black stone and a ceiling that showed the stars themselves. 12 chairs surrounded a central platform where speakers presented their cases. In the largest chair sat the emperor, old and wise and patient. Admiral Sin presented the military analysis. She was the head of Imperial Intelligence, a veteran of 100 campaigns, respected and feared throughout the empire. "What you are about to see is not a hoax," she began. "The footage has been verified by 17 independent sources. What occurred at Haven 7 was real." She played the recording. 12 seconds of chaos and death, shown in slow motion. The council members watched in silence. Some looked away. Others could not stop staring. When it ended, Admiral Sin continued. "The creature is called a honey badger. It is native to Earth, specifically the regions humans call Africa and Asia. It weighs approximately 10 kilograms. It is not the largest predator on its planet. It is not the fastest. It is not the strongest. She paused to let those words sink in. And yet it is considered one of the most dangerous animals on Earth. Our researchers have studied human records extensively. Honey badgers have been documented attacking lions, which are many times their size. They eat venomous snakes that would kill most other creatures. They have been shot, stabbed, and bitten by predators, and they continue fighting. Elder Mora, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. Surely such a small creature cannot pose a serious threat to our forces. That is what our guards thought, Admiral Sin replied. They were wrong. She displayed new images on the central screen. Diagrams of the honey badger's body. Charts showing the thickness of its skin. Analysis of its skeletal structure. The creature's hide is remarkably thick and loose. Predators that grab it find that it can twist within its own skin to attack them. Its skull is dense enough to resist the bites of much larger animals. Its claws can tear through materials that would stop our standard infantry weapons. These are physical traits, another council member said. They do not explain what happened. No, Admiral Sin agreed. They do not. What makes the honey badger truly dangerous is not its body. It is its mind. She changed the display to show brain scans and behavioral analysis. Most creatures, when faced with overwhelming odds, will flee. This is survival instinct. It is logical. It keeps species alive. She paused. The honey badger does not have this instinct. When threatened, it does not calculate odds. It does not consider retreat. It attacks, always, without exception. Pain does not deter it. Injury does not deter it. It will fight until the threat is eliminated or until it is physically unable to continue. The chamber was silent. But the most disturbing aspect, Admiral Sin continued, is the silence. Our predators roar. They display aggression. They warn their enemies. These are standard behaviors across thousands of species. The honey badger gives no warning. It makes no sound. It simply decides to kill, and then it kills. She let the words hang in the air. Our guards were not prepared for this. They expected the creature to behave like the threats they had been trained to face. It did not. And so they died. Emperor Varn spoke for the first time. His voice was old, but still carried the weight of absolute authority. What is your recommendation, Admiral? Admiral Sin straightened. We could destroy Haven 7. We could execute the human and her animal. We could erase this incident from history. She shook her head. But it would not matter. The recordings are already spreading. Every species under our rule has seen what one small Earth creature did to our finest soldiers. Fear of the unknown is now our enemy. Then, what do you propose? Elder Mora rose from her seat. She was ancient. Her blue skin faded almost to white, but her mind remained sharp. She had seen empires rise and fall. She understood power in ways few others could. I propose we ask a different question, she said. Humans consider this creature a pet, a companion animal, something to keep in their homes and play with. She let those words sink in. If this is what they consider harmless, what do they consider dangerous? If this is what guards their children, what guards their armies? The council members exchanged uneasy glances. We have tolerated humans because they seemed weak, Mora continued. We have treated them as lesser beings. Perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps we should not make enemies of a species that shares its homes with such creatures. The Emperor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words would reshape galactic history. The child is to be declared untouchable. She will receive the same protections as our own royal family. Any being who harms her, threatens her, or causes her distress will face the full punishment of imperial law. The council members gasped. The untouchable status had never been granted to anyone outside the Vulari race. Furthermore, the Emperor continued, All human colonies are to be reclassified as protected territories. Our forces will no longer enter human space without invitation. We will begin formal diplomatic relations with their species as equals. Your Majesty, a young council member protested. This seems excessive. It was only one animal. The Emperor turned his ancient eyes toward the speaker. One animal killed 11 of my finest guards while protecting a child. One animal made my son cry like an infant. One animal showed no fear, no pain, no hesitation. He paused. If humanity has many such creatures, we cannot afford to be their enemies. And if they do not, we still cannot afford to be the empire that slaughtered a little girl and her pet. The galaxy is watching. Our response matters. The decree was issued that night. By morning, every corner of the empire knew. Unipark was untouchable, not because the Velthari valued her, but because they feared what she represented. 10 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one could have predicted. The incident at Haven 7 had started something that could not be stopped. Other species under Velthari rule began to look at humans differently. If one small Earth creature could humble the mighty empire, what else might humans be capable of? Fear became respect. Respect became curiosity. Curiosity became something like friendship. Unipark was no longer a small girl on a dusty mining colony. She was 80 now, tall and graceful, with her mother's kind eyes and her father's quiet strength. She walked the halls of the Imperial Academy on the Velthari homeworld, the first human ever admitted to their most prestigious institution of learning. She studied xenobiology, the science of alien life. It seemed fitting. Somehow other students moved aside when she passed. Not because they feared her directly, but because of the small, slow creature that still followed at her heels. Bori was old now. His fur had turned completely silver. The scars from that day long ago marked his body like a map of violence. His steps were slower, his breathing heavier, but his eyes remained the same. Black and empty and utterly without fear. The professors treated Yuna with careful respect. Some of them had watched the recordings of Haven 7 when they were young. They remembered the lessons their parents had taught them. Never threaten a human. Never touch their animals. Never assume you understand what Earth creatures can do. Yuna found it strange sometimes. She had not asked for any of this. She had not asked to be untouchable. She had not asked to become a symbol of human power. She had only been a scared little girl who loved her pet, but the galaxy did not care what she wanted. The galaxy had decided what she meant, and she had learned to live with it. Her father had died 2 years ago. A peaceful death, in his sleep, surrounded by the machines he had spent his life maintaining. The colony of Haven 7 had given him a hero's funeral. Thousands of humans and dozens of Velthari had attended. On his final night, Dohan had called Yuna to his bedside. His hands were weak, his voice barely a whisper, but his eyes were clear. I was so afraid that day, he had told her. When Torek came, when his guards reached for Bori, I thought I had failed you. I thought I would lose you like I lost your mother. Yuna had held his hand and said nothing. There was nothing to say. But Bori knew, Dahung continued. He always knew. He looked at you that first night, when he was just a scared little thing in a broken cage, and he decided you were his. I never understood it. I still don't, but I am grateful for it every day. He had placed his trembling hand on Bori's head. The honey badger pressed close, gentle in a way he never was with anyone else. Thank you, Dahung whispered, for taking care of my daughter. He died that night, peacefully, with Yuna on one side and Bori on the other. Now Yuna sat in her small quarters at the academy, preparing a lecture for a group of Velthari students who had requested to learn about Earth fauna. They wanted to understand the creatures that had changed their empire. They wanted to know why humans kept such dangerous animals as companions. Bori lay on his heated bed nearby. The warmth helped his old joints. He watched her with half-closed eyes, content just to be near her. "They want me to explain you," Una said softly. "How do I do that? How do I explain to a room full of aliens that you're not a weapon? That you're not some killing machine we designed to terrorize the galaxy?" Bori yawned, showing teeth worn down by age. "You're just Bori," she continued. "You're grumpy and stubborn, and you steal food when you think I'm not looking. You sleep too much, and you refuse to take your medicine, and you growl at the cleaning robots." She paused, remembering the small creature who had curled up beside her when she was 5 years old. The silent shadow who had followed her to school every day. The warrior who had stood between her and death without a moment of hesitation. "But you chose me," she said. "Out of everyone in the universe, you chose me. And when they came to take you away, you didn't fight for yourself. You fought for me." Bori's eyes opened fully. He looked at her with that familiar gaze, and for just a moment, Una could have sworn she saw something there. Not intelligence exactly. Not love in the way humans understood it. But something. A recognition. A bond that went beyond words. She crossed the room and knelt beside his bed. Her hands, no longer the small hands of a child, gently stroked his silver fur. "The galaxy thinks they understand us now," she said. "They think humans are dangerous because we have animals like you. They study our wolves and bears and crocodiles and sharks. They catalog every predator on Earth and try to calculate our threat level." Bori made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. "But they missed the point." Una continued. "You're not dangerous because you're strong or fast or fearless. You're dangerous because you decided to love something." She smiled. "And when you love something, really love it, you don't care about the odds. You don't care about the pain. You just protect it. Forever." That was what the Velfari would never understand. They saw the violence. They saw the carnage. They saw the cold, silent efficiency of a creature that knew no fear. But they did not see what made that creature act. They did not see the bond between a lonely girl and a strange animal. They did not see the simple, powerful truth that had saved Una's life. A honey badger does not calculate. It does not strategize. It does not weigh costs and benefits. It decides something matters. And then nothing in the universe can make it stop. Humans were the same way. That was what made Earth dangerous. Not the predators. Not the weapons. Not the technology. It was the love. Fierce, irrational, unlimited love. The kind of love that makes a man rescue a wounded animal from a crashed ship. The kind of love that makes a father stand helpless while a tyrant threatens his daughter. The kind of love that makes a small creature fight 12 elite soldiers without fear or hesitation. The galaxy was only beginning to understand. Una finished her notes and looked at Bori one last time. He had closed his eyes again, breathing slowly, at peace. "Rest now," she said softly. "I'll tell them your story. Our story. And maybe someday they'll understand that the scariest thing in the universe isn't a monster." She stood and walked toward the door. "It's something small that refuses to let go of what it loves." Bori slept on, dreaming whatever dreams honey badgers dream. And somewhere in those dreams, perhaps, there was still a little girl who needed protecting. He would protect her forever. Even now, even always.